Okay, on Indian Country Today, it is a book that's called That the Blood Stay Pure by Erica L. Coleman. And according to her 2013 book, the term's origins can be traced to medieval Italy, where it was a classification of a skin color, not race. Additionally, Europeans often refer to indigenous populations of their communities as Negros. In the Portuguese colony of Brazil, Indians were called Negros de Terra, meaning Negroes of the land. Coleman pointed out during the conference that the early Virginia legislature identified Moors and Negroes separately, and there is also documentation in which individuals were described as Negro African. She questioned why the two words would have to be used together to describe a person, to describe an African person. And this image is from the website www.realhistory.com, World History dealing with South America. And this picture shows a group of Native Americans that are brown skinned, and some of them have on their feather headdresses. But if you look at the picture closely, you'll see that the little baby and the man to the left, what looks like a red type of skirt type of thing wrapped around his waist, if you notice that his hair is curly, and most Mongoloid Asian type people, their hair texture isn't like that. So this will be a good example of what they would have considered as Negros de la Terra, as was stated before. And it says the drawing of the original inhabitants of Paraguay from the book America being the latest and most accurate description of the New World pertaining to the original inhabitants. In regard to the contact between the two races, by which such stories could be borrowed from one by the other, it is not commonly known that in all of the southern colonies, Indian slaves were bought and sold and kept in servitude and worked in the fields side by side with Negroes up to the time of the Revolution, not to go back to the Spanish period, when such things were the order of the day. We find the Cherokee as early as 1693 complaining that their people were being kidnapped by slave hunters. Hundreds of captured Tuscarora and nearly the whole tribe of the Appalachians were distributed as slaves among the Carolina colonists in the early part of the 18th century, while the Natchez and others shared a similar fate in Louisiana, and as late at least as 1776, Cherokee prisoners of war were still sold to the highest bidder for the same purpose. At one time, it was charged against the governor of South Carolina that he was provoking a general Indian war by his encouragement of slave hunts. Furthermore, as the coast tribes dwindled, they were compelled to associate and intermarry with the Negroes until they finally lost their identity and were classified with that race, so that a considerable portion of the blood of the southern Negroes is unquestionably Indian. Negro, noun, member of black skin race of Africa, 1550s, from Spanish or Portuguese Negro, black. Now, they're trying to make you believe that the word Negro only applies to people of African descent, where you see U.S. citizens of African descent. Now, that is not true. As we know, they had called the Native Americans Negros de la Terra, which means the Negroes of the land, and I showed you a picture of that. So which Negroes are they talking about here? Are they talking about the American Indians, aka Native Americans, Negroes, or are they talking about people of African descent? They're trying to make African Americans believe they are only of African descent, which they are not, because a lot of African Americans have grandparents and great-grandparents and so on and so forth that came from down south. And as you saw earlier, Indians that were enslaved were called Negroes. So the politics of today and of yesterday is that they have misclassified the Native Americans and trying to pass them off as Africans.